I'm delighted to welcome everybody back to the Social World podcast. It's always a very great privilege to have you listening. And as always, too, I've tried to get you the best of guests, and this week is just no difference. Keith Waggoner, who is the founder of Zero Wake. He's a builder and operator driven by real-world impact and experience in technology and gaming and security and defence contracting, but developing systems that address modern threats. And I know that one of these threats is very big for him, which is stopping child exploitation before it happens. Keith, welcome to the programme.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. And the description kind of paints a broad picture, right? Connecting the dots between video games and something as serious as trafficking or exploitation, right?
Well, absolutely. That's what I want to actually start off with. Your current baby, if you like, your project that you're absolutely full on into at the moment, to do with video games, to do with protecting children in video, when using video games. And I'm sure there's some things are under wraps, but can you tell us much about it?
Yeah, just in general, the company name Zero Wake is really focused on stopping child exploitation before it happens, right? Specifically in online areas and gaming environments, really specifically, and by doing preventative measures more than reactive measures, which is what a lot of people do. So that includes building new tools, trainings for law enforcement as well as the public, intelligence systems, and just helping law enforcement, developers, and publishers in the gaming industry, and really everyday people that kind of can learn how to spot these early warning systems and do something about it, like I said, preventatively instead of as a reactive measure.
Oh, I do love it when I get good guests. I mean, it's really interesting that you've had such experiences because, Larry Cameron, who we had previously on the programme, I know is a great friend of yours and also a partner in this enterprise.
Yeah.
I mean, between you, my goodness, you must have racked up goodness knows how much experience in actually combating child exploitation. I
Yeah.
think admirable. And lots of people have come across. There are a growing number, thankfully, but still too few people of enough experience to really be able to create stuff to deal with this. I suspect you would agree.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's even more unfortunate, and I can't um fault anybody because of the modern day and age, but using it almost as a gimmick or a tactic online for clickbait and monetization and things like that, and just kind of going about it in a sloppy way as well, whether they're just naive or just unaware. But yeah,
Mm.
it's kind of unfortunate, the dwindling number of passionate people about things like this.
Do you think it's the kind of whatever syndrome that's affected people in other walks of life, whether it's war or whether it's kind of like major threat of some kind or disasters, and when they get exhausted by
Mm.
talking about it, hearing about it, and you say, well, okay, but it's probably best to put the change into those that don't like to talk about it rather than downsizing those that do know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's you know, again, unfortunately, I use that word a lot, that the current environment just as a whole across the world is very inundated, it seems like, with just all of this going rampant, whether it's, what's going on in the government here in the US and across the world, and not just exploitation for kids, but, sex trafficking, labor trafficking, just all of it. There's so much. And the problem is we're not seeing a whole lot of results, whether it's just because it's not publicized or it's just not really happening to the same level. People kind of get burnt out and exhausted. And yeah, unfortunately, it carries sort of a stigma. I can't tell you how many rooms I walk into. They say, what is it that you do? And I say, well, I run a nonprofit that does this, and their eyes glaze over. It's almost
Yeah.
yeah, it's almost like talking to a wall at that point. But it's unfortunate. But
I
hey,
get your picture. I do understand that. I really do. But
yeah.
I'm looking to follow that up. What I want to ask you really is about you listed at the beginning quite reasonably, and I know there was more on the list if you'd been less modest, that effectively, things that you'd been involved with. But where did it begin?
Hmm.
What was the kind of first kind of real involvement in these categories that you came across and got interested in?
You know, well, video games as a whole have always been a part of my life. I mean, since I was a child,
Hmm.
I've been involved in playing games, and it's been a really impactful and incorporated part of my life. So video games have always been there, even to the point where I wanted to be, part of the system, like an artist coming out of high school. But I realized there's not much of a career there, or there wasn't at least back then. So I went into the military. And that's where I started
Mm-hmm.
my military career. And, you know, I've always had a soft spot for people that just can't help themselves, right? And children specifically fall into that category. And I've definitely been a part of, certain search and rescue and operations that have dealt with that in,
Mm-hmm.
the last 10 years or so of my contracting career. But more recently, within the last 5 years or so, getting married, kind of setting up the white picket life and having children of my own has really just sort of skyrocketed that motivation to help others that, are less fortunate or can't really help themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
it gives me a certain level of empathy now that I can relate with. So that really is what, spearheaded or skyrocketed this to sort of be a public facing entity now, and to meet up with previous friends like Larry or any of the people I work with, because, it was something that we could actually be actionable on. We could do something about it. So if we're
Right.
not going to, who else is?
So it's while you were in the army that the ideas got sparked.
In the Navy, yeah.
In the Navy, sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
in
right.
the US Navy, and then like I said, contracting for several years after that
Hmm.
as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you're obviously somebody that can handle things up to a point, because nobody's absolutely, immune. But,
Yeah.
I did lots of stuff with Interpol in the past and on sex tourism on the Pacific Rim and so on. And I got quite shocked, along the way. But, I came back home. And I didn't have to live it, or I didn't have to continually investigate it, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
I could talk about it a lot, which I hope I did. But the point being, it really is that, you've got to take care of yourself sometimes. And I think that's a message to anybody that we might like to recruit, if you like, to do things that we've been involved with ourselves, that sort of thing.
Yeah, awareness is huge. It will
Mm,
always, legitimate awareness will always be one of the most powerful things, right?
mm,
And having people know we exist. The whole company philosophy of zero wake, is kind of like a Navy or a boating term, right? Where you don't make any ripples, you don't make any waves. So we've been doing the work already just behind the scenes and
mm,
without a lot of
mm,
attention. And we've realized that we can make a greater impact if we actually come forward to the public and get that awareness and get that support, and yeah, recruit people, and even the monetary support, right? It goes to the tools we build and the systems that we have to upkeep and put together. So all of it helps, honestly. And I hate to be a cliche, but every drop in the bucket fills it,
Of
right?
course it does. Listen, I mean, and very few people started with a nice fat thing from their father, except maybe your president, I suppose, but whatever. Um, Effectively, I want to just talk a little bit more about what you were talking about on the education side, if that's
Hmm.
okay, because obviously, and it makes total sense. You talk about educating parents, platforms, and communities.
Hmm. Hmm.
What tools do you use for that, or is it mainly just human contact, speeches, etc.?
Yeah, so primarily right now, anyways, it's workshops and trainings and like live
Hmm.
sessions that
Hmm.
we do. And I personally, being in the gaming industry, have a certain level of tech expertise, but
Hmm.
nowhere near cybersecurity or intelligence experts. And that's why we had to work with somebody like Larry, because he is that link to the puzzle where I just cannot, right? I can't even voice or use the nomenclature very well. So,
Hey, listen, listen.
um,
Look to your. If you look to your left and far down the hill, that's where I am.
yeah, yeah. It's funny, and you know what? I have to take it with a grain of salt too, because I always am part of that group where I think everybody thinks on the same level, right? And you have to
Hmm.
understand some people don't have the awareness, and so yeah, it definitely helps to go to schools or anywhere we can, and like I said, working with law enforcement now even to help bring them up to date, because you say something like gaming and maybe now people are understanding, but usually people kind of look at it like, well, what do you mean? Like video games? Like what are you doing with, predators or exploitation in
Yeah.
gaming? It just doesn't make sense. But they're starting to get aware.
No, I mean, I just thinking that. Have you ever considered, and I'm not advocating it, but I mean, leading with sort of some really heavy duty stuff in terms of kind of promote not promotion, but like persuading people what you see as important.
Yeah, I am probably one of the biggest advocates, specifically for, gaming in these online areas because, again, I was tired of doing it in the shadows and I had to come out forward. I mean, I put on events and I've worked with the government in the gaming industry anyways, as far as,
Mm.
infrastructure and building things. But right now, gaming is probably the largest social platform, especially for kids on the entire planet. And they're living there. And, these predators and these people know that. So we're trying to build some public facing tools that parents, law enforcement, kids, anybody can have access to for free, that they can just check themselves and check who it is that they're talking to, and we can build these systems. And yeah, that's one thing I would promote, is that's what we're going to be having on the website. That's what the website is,
Tell
zero.
me this then, Keith, because there's a bit of a flaw in there too. Because if you're doing it for free, which is wonderful, who's paying for it?
Mhm.
And how are you having to raise the money?
Currently, yeah, we do raise the money, and if you go to zerowake.org, you will see our GoFundMe and our different ways that you can donate to help support us. We are going after certain grants, and we do make money in like our trainings and things that we do extracurricular, like with the public. So we are trying to stay afloat, but this is kind of that initial push for telling everybody we exist so that we can
Hmm.
do more substantial work.
Well, obviously, I'm sitting in the UK and you're sitting there in Las Vegas. But effectively, um, do you do much international work?
Yeah, we do a lot of international work online because a lot of these game publishers are, across the world,
Hmm.
whether they're
Yeah.
in the
Hmm.
UK or Canada or here in the States. So we are trying to gain that global foothold for, like I said, our public facing system on the back end. We go across borders all day long and try to put together profiles or these entity lists and things so that we can connect a lot of the dots, because what's happening is these game publishers and producers and developers are kind of siloed. Even if they wanted to help, they can only help really within their niche. They can't go out into Discord or Snapchat or across the boundaries that they
So they're
have
very
within their
limited
own.
then.
Yeah, so it's up to somebody like us to connect all those dots because that's how these predators work. And even in the United States, there's legislature being pushed right now, the Safer Gaming Act and stuff that's going to be forcing these publishers and developers to sort of take certain countermeasures, outside of profanity, because right now that's kind of all they're monitoring for. So, yeah, it's a good time to finally get some awareness and some push on it, and we're going to be at the forefront of it.
Well, obviously, we're going to keep in touch. Look,
Yeah.
I'd like to sort of just push on a little bit. If you've got, I think we've got a bit of time still, if that's all right.
Oh, plenty.
Okay, training programs that
Hmm.
you offer are presumably Zero Wake offers, yeah? Yeah? Is that
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, apart from what I'll tell people, because you're going to say it as well, your website and et cetera, et cetera, where else would you be likely to come across it? Do you do much promotion on social media?
Well, we just created all the social accounts before our conversation here. So yeah, we will be pushing pretty hard across social media, in our Discords, across, just anywhere online that we possibly can, and hopefully some of our partners. We work with a lot of esports organizations, veteran communities, and these people have massive reach already, and they're very like-minded individuals that are already in this industry. So that's where you're going to be finding us, is probably promotions in a lot of the games you're already playing, or the communities you're already in. Speaking directly to my gaming family out there, but we are starting to embed, and we're piloting systems here in Las Vegas with local government and law enforcement that are going to be adapting our systems and our training specifically for their certifications, for their whether it's beat cops or vice or anybody that's involved on the law enforcement side. So we are going to be reaching out to them directly. But again, we have intake forms on the website. So if anybody out there hears this and is kind of curious, we are tailoring our systems because we have such a broad scope of what we can do. So it's kind of impossible to say, here's a big blanket of everything we can do. What we're doing is we're going to like specific law enforcement and saying, what are you missing? Where are your gaps? And if you don't know where your gaps are, we will find them, and we're going to tailor these trainings and these systems to you and give you access to our platforms that we're currently building and so on and so forth, right? So we're being very collaborative in our measures to make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck.
Is that mainly in the US? I know you're doing consultancy abroad, but but in terms of the training, for example.
Yeah, yeah, primarily in the US, with local groups and organizations, schools, like I said, family organizations. But yeah, mainly because, like I said, we're piloting these systems, these public trainings. So a lot of it's going to be here on the West Coast in the United States because that's where we're located. So it's a lot easier to obviously get
Yeah,
out and do things on a lower budget right now.
no, I appreciate it. I think what you do is
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm just trying to work out what do you do in the afternoons?
I try to spend time with my kids, God willing, but aside from that, I do have day jobs, and I own and run a couple other companies, so
All
it's a
right.
lot. My bandwidth is very limited, but I try to be as proactive as I can with it. So
Now,
Zero Wake as a whole is kind of tiered, right? So we're building out these public infrastructures, which will have chatbots, safe third-party, non-manipulative chatbots that will support parents and just general public that want to come and visit. We will have resources like, contacts, tip lines. We'll have a portal that Larry is building out with obviously the open source intelligence tools in there, and all of that's going to be on the public facing side. And then the second tier is the back end of our system, which is actually putting together all of these profiles. And without saying too much of the secret spices, right, is that it's actively listening and recovering signals, let's say, that people are putting out. So everybody knows, as an example, that sting operations or luring operations from law enforcement are already happening. They're catching these predators, just like on the TV show that I'm sure everybody's seen, by posing as, minors and underage individuals and luring and capturing these,
Mm-hmm.
disgusting people. Um, but that's on a case by case basis and it's done by real people. What we're doing is we're going to be able to do that in mass. We're going to be able to collect that data as long as it's on the open source area and go in and understand those signals before, again, any sort of predatory
Mm.
actions even happen, right? And so we're going to be able to collect that and use that intel on the back end to build subpoenas, build cases, build algorithms that are going to track, like I said, these entities across whether it's Discord, Snapchat, social media, game lobbies. Roblox is a big one, obviously. Everybody knows that. Fortnite, like anywhere and everywhere in the gaming and online ecosystem, it's going to be in mass, and that's
So
huge.
you really basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're talking
Mhm.
about perhaps assembling a forensic library.
Exactly, exactly. It's profile building. Yeah, it's taking these
Mm.
signals, let's call them again, right, without giving too much away, of, you know, let me just be very like naive about it, or fifth grade level, which is basically that this doesn't happen overnight. Somebody doesn't just jump into your messages on
Mm.
Fortnite or Call of Duty or something and say, "Hey, I'm an older guy and I'm trying to, lure you and do bad things." Right? It doesn't happen like that. It happens over months, if not longer, and they build trust, they build friendships, they build relationships, and they bring those children and those underage people across platforms with them. They might find them in a game lobby and then they pull them to Snapchat and then they pull them to Discord, or they start sending media to each other. So it's a long process and there's
Mm.
plenty of time. There's plenty of room to catch those signals much sooner than anybody is, and that's where we're trying to focus.
So what's preventing it? People?
It's an understanding, a lack of understanding, I should say, right? It happens so quickly, and these people, these bad actors, adapt so quickly. And
Hmm.
it's up to people like us that understand the industry, with my gaming background specifically, on where to find this, where to get it upstream.
Yeah, you got any figures, have you, Keith? Any kind of context and either of an area particular or general idea of kind of the cases, the number of cases we're talking about, the number of, within the gaming family, if you like, in a year?
Yeah, I want to say, give me one sec, let me get my data in front of
Hmm.
me.
Isn't it? Isn't that good? A guest that has data. That's terrific. So,
Okay. Oh yeah, I've got everything, because as I said, we are currently building out quite a bit of information and data pools for different organizations, especially here in the United States. So
hmm?
oh, here we go. Yeah, I mean it's incredible. So currently, there's literally about 36 million reports of these suspected, child sexual
Did you
exploitation
say
and things like
36?
that.
36 million.
36 million
Yeah.
every year since our reports pick up from 2023 up until currently. So it's not incidents necessarily of things that have actually happened. These are just the reports. And that goes to say that how many reports are not reported, right? Or how many incidents are not reported. So it's ridiculous. And year over year, it's only increasing, I think, 300 to 400%, because like I said, they're adapting so quickly. And I think if I remember correctly, I don't have it in front of me, roughly like I think 1 in 5 kids are experiencing some type of solicitation online in the gaming industry alone. 1 in 5. That means somebody you know probably has a kid or something that has been solicited, whether they know it or not. And it's like I said, it's rampant at this point. And like I said, even in the FBI and the three-letter industries here or organizations here in the United States, they're starting to understand and they're starting to cooperate and collaborate a lot better with teams like Thorn or any of the people that are a little more well known right now. So
Remember, Keith, if there was any contacts you wanted to recommend as well as Zero Wake, we'll put them on the front page if they're people that you think would complement people's understanding of things.
yeah, I think we're sort of first. We are pretty much at the forefront or the front line of this industry specifically. A lot of people glaze over it, like I said. So when it comes to gaming, Zero Wake is going to be at the beginning of it. So any and all support through Zero Wake is really going to drive us to the front of, like I said, the line.
Okay,
And
okay.
anything like Paradigm, right, and Qantas with Larry is going to
Yes.
be super helpful as well.
And, I have been very impressed with several of my previous guests on the program as well. I mean, in terms of trafficking, in terms of survivors and law enforcement. It's just a perfect example. And you now adding this kind of shocking numbers about gaming industry, with all the other issues to do with slavery, trafficking, I mean, I'd like you to listen to a little story, all right, and give me an opinion. Is that okay? About what can be done to replace, okay? I did, as part of a previous group of podcasts to do with human trafficking in the Caribbean, I interviewed someone who was working for the UN Task Force on Trafficking in that region and her partner. A day before I was due to put the podcast out, I got a frantic phone call, a frantic email from their boss pleading with me not to put it out. Because, in their words, Donald Trump had just removed all their funding and 11 point something million, for that team working in the Caribbean. And they didn't know what to do, but they were under a penalty if they discussed it externally or something, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, I could have put it out. I didn't in the end because, funnily enough, a few months later, the woman had left because obviously she didn't have a job anymore, but set up her own company, has got a really good CV and a perfect amount of experience. And she offered to do the podcast as an individual, and it was good, great value. And she was the first in the series of 4. Anyway, all I'm really saying, is that there's a lot of good people out there. It's worthwhile we can, and I want our guests, and I'm obviously talking with yourself, to be, as open as possible, because at the moment they're all free, to interact with, to use as a network.
Yeah.
There you are. I've told everybody this, so it's not, it's not. People could be coming. People could be coming after you.
Yeah, who knows, right? And there's always a risk, but I think the reward is the bigger upside. And having a bigger network of people and individuals, right, is more important because who knows, right? If it's internal, if it's our own government, or if it's external, you always have to be aware and just hope for the best because even us, we don't get a whole lot of support. We have to beg and plead or kick down doors just to get attention. And so that's why we just do it on our own, regardless. Like, no matter what, we're going to do it.
Subjects a lot of people shy away from. They just can't handle it. I understand. I've been there, got the T-shirt.
I'm dealing with that in my own community right now, right? Usually I'm very lighthearted and fun and in my LinkedIn or my social life. And all of a sudden kind of doing a public switch to like, here's what I'm trying to build. It's something that's really important. Can you help support? It's crickets, unfortunately. Yeah.
All right, look,
I've
got a last question I've got to put to you. Is that all right? We're nearly running. I mean, you can have 2 parts in it. Firstly, I want to know where they can get, if the website's the only place, fine. If not, how they can get a hold of information about Zero Wake and your work,
Mhm.
and about events coming up and so on. And then a quick minute just on advice to people who could well be on the brink, 50-50, in terms of not quite knowing what to do about friend, neighbour, relative, workmate, in terms of actual kind of behavioural stuff and changes. It's not the easiest thing to sort of, what might happen if you're wrong.
Yeah, I agree. And the biggest push we're going to do is at zerowake.org, and we are going to be having our calendars on there. Like I said, we are brand spanking new on the public facing side. So all of this is being built out. You'll see our cross all of our socials. It will be at zerowake.org. And the website again will have most of our details, our links, our support systems, and you can contact me or any of the team directly on there. We are an open door. We're always looking for any type of support that we can get. So definitely go through those channels to find us. And I think I have kind of like 3 points I can end as far as advice or just call outs or anything like that. And mainly is if you're a parent, or just anybody in general that is kind of relevant, start paying attention to who your kids are talking to or interacting with online, not just what they're playing and the content that they're playing. That doesn't matter because they're going to be going specifically in any space that your kids are in. So it's more about paying attention to the conversations that they're having, and not necessarily prying into their lives, but just being more educational with them, right? Getting your kids to understand the signs so that they don't fall victim to any of these kind of things. That's the biggest one I can shout out is the parents. If you're in the gaming industry, or in any of these online industries at all, I think we together need to build safer systems, without killing the gaming industry or what makes it great. It's a fun space. It's supposed to be a escape or a space for your children, but we need to organize together and not be so combative. And we need to work together because that's really what it's going to be, is opening up systems with each other. And I think on the third part is, again, if you want to
Mm.
support, whether you're a public group, parent individually, law enforcement, or anybody listening that understands the importance of what we're doing, just reach out, zerowake.org or info@zerowake.org. You can email directly. Let's work together. Let's figure out what we can do together. We are an extremely supportive group, and we're happy to help. So those are the main points.
There we are. I think you got you got it out clearly, and that's quite important. Okay, look, Keith, thanks ever so much for talking with us. I've got a feeling we'll do it again.
Yeah, looking forward.
We'll do an audit on you, a check. All right, how you getting on?
Yeah, hopefully we'll have really great news.
Right, you'll be sitting there in your sunbed with a martini in your hand or something like that, would you?
Yeah, maybe in before I wake up, or maybe in VR, right? I'll have the VR glasses on. Yeah, right now, currently, just so everybody knows, every penny pretty much that you guys donate or help support us is going
Mm.
straight to the mission. This is
Hmm?
completely extracurricular for us, so we really appreciate it.
Well, I think it's good that you made that point, and a good point to finish on. So, look, Keith Waggoner, thank you very, very much, and the very best of luck with Zero Wake and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a pleasure, an honor. Thank you so much.